Making a vocal sample pack can get messy and very disorganized if you don't have a good plan of action. I'm going to walk you through my exact method and workflow that I use to make my sample packs. We will look at the making of my new rap sample pack that is now available for free on the BandLab app. Selling or releasing sample packs is a great way to make passive income, and it's an interesting way to get your voice heard by producers and even big artists. But before you press record and start spitting out random vocals, let's get you a structured plan. We'll get into detail on the 7 main steps to my method. Step 1 is planning. Step 2 is writing. Step 3, session setup. Step 4, the recording process. Step 5, processing and mixing. Step 6, proper bouncing for perfect loops. Step 7, packaging. By the way, if we haven't met, I'm Kimera, producer, songwriter, and vocalist. Be sure to subscribe if you love vocal production and music monetization tips.
I'm a real bad thing, real bad thing. Blood, sweat, and tears, yeah, that's literal. Victory, only thing in my peripheral. And the reaction, feel it like it's visceral. Glorious, you could call it Levitical. Levitical, Levitical. Glorious, you could call it Levitical. Levitical, Levitical. Glorious, you could call it Levitical. Act like I ain't in my feelings, no vibes. Nobody know what I've been dealing with. Disrespect. So now that I see all them gains, can't help but remember the pain, pain. I'm on my way for real. I'm on my way for real. Feeling some type of way. Staying up, staying paid. I'm on my way for real. Listen. And we ain't throw no shade. Just facts is all I can say. Careful. I'm on my way. Yeah, I'm on my way for real. Yeah.
I think it's a bop. I think I have more fun producing demos for sample packs than I do actual songs. Okay, so let's start with step 1, which is planning your pack. Very, very important to map this out. You want to choose a theme or a genre. And sure, you could do like a super mega, like thousands of samples pack like my friend Hyperbits and Kate McGill did. But for today, we're just focusing on 100 samples at a time. So with that, I don't really want to have multiple genres. I want the people who are seeking out sample packs to be able to see that thumbnail artwork and know that is what I'm looking for. Very specific. So today I'm showing you my rap sample pack. It's got rap libs and hooks. So here's just a look at my planning document. After I chose my genre, the first thing I want to focus on is mapping out the folders that are going to be inside the main folder. So ultimately I chose ad libs, quick phrases, hooks, some spoken word, rhythmic phrases. And actually I didn't even include that because I got to 100 samples faster than I thought I would. So I've got the R&B ad-libs. I did some like distant verby ad-libs, verses, and some special effects. I asked ChatGPT to help me get organized. Knowing that I needed 100 samples total, I asked it to suggest how many samples should go in each folder. So we've got like 20 ad-libs, 20 quick phrases, 10 main hooks, 10 verses, and these are just approximations as you're doing your planning. Once you get into it, you might start doing a little more or a little less of some folders, and that's totally cool. They do not need to be even numbers at all. I only ended up with 4 folders at the end because I hit 100 samples pretty fast, so I'm probably gonna come up with a volume 2 pretty soon on this. But just to show you some other ideas, this is another sample pack that I did. So I did some ad-libs, I did some girl sounds like little laughs and little and like cute stuff like that. Harmonized, non-lyrical, so I did like some moving oohs with harmonies, simple melodic loops, da 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 da, stuff like that. Short sung syllables, sung phrases like what? Before you go. Textures is like some more verbed out, affected vocals that I imagine producers would use kind of almost as part of their instrumental, just to give it a little bit of that human touch. Verses and hooks, vocal chops. Those are awesome for like drops. Those were very intricate. I did some reverse reverbs and risers. So there is a lot you can do. And hey, we're all here looking for good ideas. So if you have other fun folder ideas, drop them in the comments below. Another thing I want you to think about is what tempos fit the genre that you're working on. I also asked ChatGPT for help with that, and it suggested 70 to 85 works for people like Drake, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, ooh, don't put them in the same sentence. 90 to 110, 120 to 140. It was so helpful to have this prior to the writing process, because when I sat down to start writing, I like went and listened to a little Future before I hit the 120, 140 range, and it just got me in the zone to write for artists in that range already. And then this will inform the next part, which is the writing process, and that comes with sourcing some instrumentals to write to. So I had decided that I'm gonna shoot for like 25 hooks and verses. And in the writing process, those are the only folders I'm gonna focus on. I'm not gonna think about phrases. I'm not gonna think about ad-libs. I'm only gonna focus on writing these main hooks and verses. You can find like 5 to 10 instrumentals either on beat licensing websites, or what I did was just find some chord progressions off of Splice and I paired them with drum loops. As long as you've got something that inspires you that you can record to, that's all that matters, because these are all gonna get thrown out at the end of the day. So for all the loops or instrumentals that you've got, try to write at least one verse and one chorus to each one. And if you're more inspired to write more than one, go for it. Absolutely go for it. All the other stuff, we're actually gonna come up with it in the vocal booth. It's gonna keep us moving because we've got a lot to do. Step 3 is setting up your session. Even though I recorded to multiple instrumentals, I put them all in the same session so I stay organized and I'm able to count my samples across the whole pack as I go. So as you can see on the top, these are the instrumentals, and what I've done is I've mapped out the tempo changes as we go. So when I have my click track going over here, it's doing the correct tempo for this beat, and over here, it's a different tempo, right? Then we have our vocal tracks over here. I named each track after the folder it's going to be in. So I have 2 verse tracks, I've got my sung phrases, and as you can see, I did rap libs and hooks and everything in each song, so I'm not starting a new track per each song. That keeps me super organized, but it does get tricky when you're doing singing stuff and you're recording in different keys and you're relying on auto-tune because you want to change the key of your auto-tune for each thing. So I would maybe put my auto-tune 5 times in a row, right? And I would make them their different respective key. But then when I'm working within a specific song, I would just turn off the wrong auto-tunes and just keep the one that's in the key of that track. And that keeps me pretty organized without having to have a new track for every single key. So I recommend that workflow. And then from here, the next step, number 4, is the recording process. Go ahead and start with the hardest stuff first, which is gonna be your verses and hooks. That's the more involved, especially if you wanna do any melodyning. I recommend doing all your editing as you go. You may notice down here I have some tracks that are blue. They're called A back 1, 2, 3. I also have like B backs, C backs. That's just how I organize my template. But those are the background vocals. So these background vocals belong to these guys, and you just need to remember, if you're stacking things, to unmute things when you're bouncing, and obviously mute the things that you're not bouncing at that moment. And then once you have your main core samples done, freestyle the rest, okay? Ad-libs are just off the cuff anyway. You're literally ad-libbing. So just go down the line one song at a time and start recording. And if it is something that you are tuning, maybe go down the entire line so you're finishing basically all the recording for that folder, and then do all your melodyning and editing before you move on to the next folder. It will keep you way more organized. For my phrases or my single words or my handful of words folder, don't be surprised how many ideas you come up with when you have the freedom to just think about a few words. It's harder to write a full song or a full verse with a whole like heartfelt concept, but when you're just like, I'm in the club, I'm pulling up, I'm a real bad thing, real bad thing. There's like less commitment to coming up with like a full idea. So it's really fun and freeing to just come up with these little snippet ideas. If you do run out of ideas, ChatGPT, my best friend, and I will totally expose myself right now. I asked it for some one-liners and short phrases that are related to the pack, and it just gave me all these ideas. Some of them are corny. This is where, you know, you have to put your songwriter hat on and say, heart on my sleeve, not really gonna fit my brat pack. I don't like that one. You only got one shot. That's kind of cool. On my grind might be dipping into cheesy, but you will have to be the one to discern that. All right, so you've recorded all of your samples. You are ready to start step 5, which is the mixing and processing part. Some people like to do a wet version and a dry version of a lot of their samples. I did that in my Ultimate Essentials pack for sure. But for this one, I kind of wanted people to be able to just like drag and drop into their session, and the vocals are just kind of ready to go. So what I did personally on this was like a very light template-y kind of mix with just a little light reverb and a well-mixed vocal chain. However, in my Ultimate Essentials pack, I did do a lot of like crazy special effects. So you might end up using like one phrase recording and get like 5 samples out of it, depending on how you're doing your processing. You'll have the dry version, you'll have the normal mix wet version, and then you can do all these crazy affected versions, which obviously means the amount of samples starts really adding up fast, and you will get to that 100 a lot faster than you think. Step 6. Okay, so this is how I do it. I don't know how anyone else is doing it, but this is the way I do it. I actually go through this session and I will bounce everything, possibly a little longer than I know I want the loop to be. And then I actually shut this session down and start a brand new blank session with no plugins in it. And it looks kind of like this. They're all stacked on top of each other. The reason I do this is because when you are bouncing out a WAV file in Pro Tools with lots of plugins on, there is going to be some latency. And what it does is it makes your bounced file just a teeny tiny bit longer than you wanted it. There's always a little bit of delay right before you start to sing. So I put everything in a fresh, clean, blank session with no plugins that my computer needs to process so that when we rebounce these, they will be perfect loops. Okay, for example, check this out. Have a little fade in, because obviously what I did is I cut some of the beginning of this WAV file and then I gave it a little fade in and then I faded out that reverb tail. But very, 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 very important, one of the most important parts of this is to make sure that as you're going through and doing these bounces, you're changing the tempos as you get to the new tempo, right? So here's a sample that's 80, so I changed my tempo to 80, and as you can see, it's perfectly on the grid. So when people are in a song that is 80 beats per minute and they drop in this vocal, they can just loop it and duplicate it and it will always be right on the beat. Huge. Don't mess that part up. That is the biggest part to not mess up. Second biggest part to not mess up is the naming conventions, how you are naming each one of these files. And depending on where you plan on selling your samples, each website might have different guidelines for this, but a common rule of thumb is to either put first the name of the pack or your name, underscore the name of the loop, underscore the beats per minute, underscore the key it's in, and make sure you get the right key. And somewhere in there, you might even put the name of the folder that it's in. And then for something that's like maybe repetitive, it's not really like lyrical, like my rap libs, like yeah. For those ones, I just named them rap libs, and then I had an underscore 01, underscore 02 at the end of each bounce. So taking a look inside one of these folders, here's the sung libs folder. I've got sung ad libs is the name of the sample, and then the key, beats per minute, vocals is the name of the instrument, and then underscore 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. Within the bounce files folder, I have created the official folder, which is this one, Kimera, rap libs, and hooks. Double click that. In here, I've got my cover art, my 2 demos, and then the samples themselves. Loops, I would also have a one-shots folder. If I had any one-shots, open that, and there are your main folders. Cool? If you are doing dry and wet, you could do that within this folder. So I would have another set of folders inside the hooks folder that says dry, wet, and then in there, the samples go. One more also very big thing to think about when you are bouncing your samples is how loud they are. You want them to be consistent all through your pack. So when someone is listening and just hitting next, 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 they're all the same volume. It would be weird if you're scrolling through and one of them is just way quieter than the rest of them. The guidelines I was given for my BandLab pack is to keep them between -18 and -6. Anything under -18 lefts is too quiet. Anything over -6 is too loud. My samples all clocked in around -8 to 9 to 10. And how did I make sure that I was doing that? I kept dragging this master fader down with me as I was going. And in here I have master plan because they have a nice LUFS meter right here. As I would play them, I'd make sure they're in that range, so they are, which is great. Okay, step 7 is packaging. That's going to include your cover art. This is mine. I made this in Canva. It's so easy to make cover art in Canva. One thing to note on almost all of these marketplaces that you'll be selling these on, people will see this art at like the size of your thumbnail. It's gonna be so tiny. So if you are going to put words on it, Make sure they're big and legible when they're that tiny. And I think my favorite part of this whole project is to produce a demo for it. You want it to sound like it's a song, but it's really just a showcase of as many samples as you can pack into a 1-minute song. If you want to download this free sample pack of mine, just go make an account on BandLab. It's free to join. Open up BandLab Studio to create a song and click on BandLab Sounds. That's where you will find mine and other amazing sample packs. And if you're looking for some ideas for some super unique special effects, check out this playlist where I run my vocals through various plugins to make crazy sounds. Hit subscribe and then click here and I'll see you over there.